Tomorrow morning, your alarm goes off. You sit up in bed, same as always. But something is wrong. Not wrong exactly, just different. You swing your legs over the side of the mattress and stand up. And for a half second, you think you're still dreaming because you don't just stand. You float upward, not into the ceiling, but enough. Enough to feel it. Your feet land back on the floor softer than they should. Your body feels lighter than it has any right to. You take a step toward the bathroom and you overshoot it by 2 feet. You grab the doorframe to stop yourself. You look down at your hands. Nothing has changed, but everything has changed. Overnight, Earth's gravity dropped to half of what it was yesterday. And nothing, not your body, not your city, not the planet itself, will ever be the same again. Let's start with the first few seconds, because the first few seconds would be chaos. Every object on Earth that was balanced, stacked, or resting on something would shift. Not dramatically, not like an earthquake, but subtly, everywhere, all at once. Anything top-heavy would tip. Anything loosely stacked would slide. Your coffee, if you poured it too fast, would arc through the air in a slow, beautiful curve and land 3 feet past your mug. Gravity at half strength doesn't mean things float. It means everything falls at half the rate. Objects still fall. They just fall slower, softer, more forgiving. Within the first hour, every person on the planet would be relearning how to walk. Your muscles were built for a world that no longer exists. Every step you've ever taken was calibrated for 9.8 meters per second squared. Your brain knows exactly how hard to push off the ground, how fast your foot will come back down, how much force to absorb on landing. All of that is wrong now. You push off and you go too far. You try to run and you bounce. You still have real weight, real traction, but every movement has a new ceiling and you keep hitting it. Within a day, most people would figure out a new gait. Within a week, it would start to feel normal. Within a year, children born into this world would move through it with a fluid, almost dancing grace that people from the old world could never quite match. Falls kill hundreds of thousands of people every year. In a half-gravity world, that changes completely. You could fall from a second-story window and land the way you currently land, jumping off a low wall. The accidental death rate from falls would collapse almost overnight. Humans would become, in a very real sense, harder to kill by accident. Sports would never recover from this, or rather, they would transform into something unrecognizable. The current world record for the high jump is just over 2.4 meters. In half gravity, that same athlete clears nearly 5 meters. The long jump record of about 9 meters becomes 18. A basketball player who can barely dunk now hangs in the air long enough to look around. Every single sport built around the physics of this planet would need to be redesigned from scratch. And new sports would emerge. Vertical sports, aerial sports, things that look more like choreography than competition. Imagine a sport built entirely around controlled flight, where athletes launch themselves off ramps and navigate obstacle courses 20 feet in the air. In half gravity, that's not science fiction. That's Tuesday afternoon. But the changes to human civilization would go far deeper than sports. Buildings would change first. The entire engineering logic of architecture is built around fighting gravity. Every column, every beam, every foundation is sized to hold weight against a downward pull. Cut that pull in half, and suddenly you can build taller with less material. Skyscrapers that currently require massive steel cores could be built with a fraction of the structural support. Bridges could span distances that are currently impossible. Cities would start reaching upward in ways they never could before. Not because architects suddenly got more creative, because the planet finally let them. Airplanes fly by generating lift to overcome gravity. Half the gravity means half the lift required, which means smaller wings, smaller engines, less fuel. Air travel would become dramatically cheaper overnight. The oceans would be unrecognizable. In a half-gravity world, tides would be dramatically more extreme. Waves would be taller. Coastlines that are currently stable would be reshaped within decades. The sea level itself would rise, not because of melting ice, though that would happen too, but because water under lower gravity spreads differently. It wants to be flatter, wider, shallower. Coastal cities built over centuries for the current ocean would face a reckoning that has nothing to do with climate change and everything to do with physics. Forests would grow in ways that seem almost impossible. Trees are in a constant war with gravity. Every inch of height a tree gains is an inch more water it has to pump upward against a downward pull. The tallest trees on Earth right now, the coastal redwoods, max out at around 115 meters. In half gravity, that limit doubles. Forests of 200-meter trees are not just possible, they're inevitable. The canopy would be so high that the forest floor would exist in a kind of permanent twilight. New ecosystems would form in the space between. The vertical range of life on land would expand in ways that would take millions of years to fully play out. Animals would follow. Birds that currently struggle to stay airborne would find flight effortless. Species that never evolved wings might begin to develop gliding membranes, because the reward for even a small amount of lift would be so much greater. Insects would grow larger. The size limit on flying insects is currently set partly by gravity and partly by the mechanics of oxygen delivery. Relax gravity and you get bigger bugs, significantly bigger bugs. If that thought makes you uncomfortable, you're not alone. And then there's us. The human body is a gravity machine. Your skeleton exists almost entirely to hold you upright against a downward pull. Your heart is sized to pump blood upward against gravity. In half gravity, all of that is overbuilt. Within a generation, humans would begin to change. Not through evolution, not yet, but through simple biology. Bones respond to the stress placed on them. Less gravitational stress means less bone density. Muscles that are never fully loaded begin to atrophy. The same process that happens to astronauts on the International Space Station would happen to everyone, everywhere, all the time. Over centuries, the changes would go deeper. Children born into half gravity would develop longer spines and more slender limbs. The chronic back pain that currently affects 80% of adults, the compressed discs, the collapsed arches, the worn-out knees, all of it is a product of a skeleton asked to carry a gravitational load for 80 years. In half gravity, your joints would last longer, your heart would work less hard. The sheer physical cost of being alive would drop. After 1,000 years, the humans living on this planet would look at photographs of us and see something almost foreign, shorter, denser, hunched slightly forward, built like load-bearing structures because that's exactly what we were. They would look at our cities, our bridges, our sports, and see a civilization that spent all of its energy fighting a force they barely have to think about. And they might feel something like sympathy. Because here's what this thought experiment actually reveals. Gravity is not just a force that keeps your feet on the ground. It is the invisible architect of everything. It shaped the height of every tree that ever grew. It set the size of every wave that ever broke on a shore. It determined how tall we could build, how far we could jump, how long our bodies would last, and what our skies would look like. It wrote the rules of every sport we ever invented and set the limits of every structure we ever built. It is so constant, so perfectly woven into every moment of every day that we have never once stopped to notice it. Until now.